Hi, I'm Rick Belden, and this is Masculinity from the Inside Out, an exploration of the inner lives of men. If you find this content valuable, please like, share, and ring the bell for notifications. Thank you.
So, why, first off, do you think it's important for a male to find a mentor in early adulthood? And can you talk about, does that change in level of importance based on the relationship the male may or may not have had with his father? Is it still of equal importance to find a different role model?
I think the relationship, the quality of the relationship, or the absence of the relationship with the father is definitely the starting point, because that is that's the first male that you're going to bond with uh, in your life, and so um, the way that your father models his behavior as a man and how he sees himself as a man is going to be your starting point. And that may align well for you. And if it does, that's an advantage. If it doesn't, then you're going to need absolutely some other models that you can observe and try out and see how that aligns for you. I don't think that the father can do it all by himself, because that's just one person. And we need to see a variety of models as boys and as young men, as teenagers. We need to see a variety of models of how other men operate in the world, how they conceptualize themselves and their lives and their place in the world. Um, because one person is just not enough. That's just one data point. And that just doesn't provide you with enough content, as well as enough context. Uh, because even with your father, you don't see him in his entirety
Mhm.
as a human being, because you're biased, because that's your father. And so as his son, you're projecting all sorts of needs and desires and idealizations and everything on him. So it's like really hard to see our fathers clearly, until we get up into later years and we have more life experience. And then we can kind of look back and go, oh, well, he's actually a whole person. He's not just my dad. In
Yeah.
my case, I was fortunate uh, because we had extended family around. So I had uncles on both sides of the family, and they all had their problems and their deficiencies and so forth. But I had good uncles who were interested in me. And again, I got to observe the different ways that they behave, for better or worse, as men. So that's real helpful. But I think virtually every individual man, every individual boy needs to be able to look outside the immediate circle of his family of origin and his extended family, because again, that's a very limited slice of the world.
Mhm.
And so I think in any case, even in the best case where you have a father who's really attentive and he really sees you, and you're well aligned with his values and so forth, and you have extended family where you've got uncles or people like that around, I think you still need more than that, because most of us have needs and desires that extend outside the family system.
Mhm.
And so it's necessary to find somebody who's outside the family system who aligns with those parts of ourselves.
Mhm. So, and then I can obviously imagine how that relationship with the father, regardless of how good it is or isn't, if there's fractured parts of the young male that are pushed away, that are suppressed, that are not accepted, that are not given attention to, then the little boy figure that you used ultimately still grows looking for that guidance inside of an 21, 31, 41, 50-year old man.
Yeah, I mean, there are just going to be gaps there. So in my case, because the relationship with my father was, it was, it was, it was very helpful in some ways. So, for example, he was very serious about work and about being productive and applying himself in productive ways, probably to an extreme. but he modeled that for me. I saw that there was worth in that, and it was important. He taught me things about mechanical things and using tools and building things through observation, not because he really wanted me there, but I was around and I saw him do it. Um, so, but there are other things in terms of, I guess, valuing, for me to feeling valued by him
Mhm.
as an individual.
Mhm.
I didn't get that. And so I went out into the adult world still needing that.
Mhm.
And I typically went to women for that. I tried to get that from women. And that's kind of a bad deal for the man and the woman when that happens. Because if you're wounded around that father connection, and you try to get that from women that you're involved in, you're expecting something from them that they can't give you. And
Can you go deeper into detail about that? How does that show up?
well, in my case, I guess one of the ways it showed up is I used to think if I was in a relationship, in an intimate relationship, then that would meet all my needs. Uh, and aside from things that I need to do for myself, but in terms of my emotional and psychological needs, my needs to be seen, my needs to be valued, all those things that I didn't feel I got from my father,
Mhm.
like I moved those into the realm of that relationship with that woman.
Mhm.
And so I would get disappointed because she wasn't fathering me the way that I had waited to be fathered. Well, she can't do that. Women can't do that for men, for boys. You know, that's another male that we're talking about. But I had the idea that if I could just hook up with the right person, I wasn't conscious of this. I didn't know. If someone had said to me, well, you're looking for mothering from this woman, I would have said, well, yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. If someone had said you're looking for fathering from this woman, I would have thought that seems backwards. Why would I do that?
Mhm.
But it's that thing of, if you get in an intimate relationship, and if to any extent you parentify the other person, in other words, that part of you that's still young, that's
Mhm.
still waiting, that's damaged, that's hungry, that's needy, that's in there, and sees, oh, someone loves me, someone's paying attention to me, and they just go, oh, parent. And so that could be mother needs that weren't met. It could be father needs that weren't met.
Mhm. Mhm. So a lot of times whenever I see males searching for a mentor in early adulthood or at any stage of their development, is often within the context of business and career.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe along the way they learn deeper aspects of being as a byproduct, but usually it's driven by the motive to become more successful in one way or another. Do you feel that Do you feel like it's important for a male to look for or at least be open to a relationship with an older male that has nothing to do with work related? Or do you feel like that is maybe at this time kind of like the most realistic, appropriate path that they should look for, because two males are going to want a relationship maybe to be beneficial in some way, physically
Mm-hmm.
beneficial in terms of like what it can do for them financially or their skill set that's tangible.
I think some of those, I think there's a lot of those result oriented mentoring arrangements can provide a lot of the other
Yeah.
aspects
Yeah.
that you talked about. I mean, certainly there are. I mean, I remember my own father had a friend, an older friend, who was like, could have been basically his father's age, that he hung around with and did building projects and talked about carpentry and stuff like that. And I think my father gained a lot of those other aspects of the kind of recognition and feeling valued, but because they were both interested in the same things and somebody was sharing his experience and all those kind of intangibles. I think all of that stuff can be part of a more, as I said, kind of a result oriented mentorship, like a business mentorship or something like that. like the, you know, the sort of the negative model of that is basically in that movie Wall Street, where Michael Douglas plays Gordon Gekko, and he's mentoring Charlie Sheen's character, and he's actually mentoring him to have values that are not good.
Mm-hmm.
And then Charlie Sheen's character, his father steps in, and basically there's a big conflict. You know, Charlie Sheen's character is like, I don't know which way to go. It's like, this guy's really successful in business, but he's pushing me to do things that don't feel right to me. My father's just a working guy. He's a mechanic who works on the airplanes. I'm upset that he wasn't more successful. I don't want to be like him, but his values are better than mine.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a movie example of the kind of that kind of split almost that you were talking about, where it's just like, what am I aiming for, and what can I get here, and what might I sacrifice? Because I think it's very easy for young men to sort of be seduced into a situation where they sacrifice important parts of themselves, their integrity and so forth, because they want that mentorship so badly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that happens a lot with it can even happen in peer groups. I mean, it happened with me. You know, I had a late birthday, so I was the youngest person in my class in high school, and I gravitated towards, some friends that were getting in a lot of trouble, and I really wanted to impress them. And so I started to sort of change. I still had my values, but I started getting a lot softer about, should I do these things or should I not do these things? Because it was so important to me to
Mm-hmm.
get that validation, to feel like I was
And
seen.
that can happen at any age. You'll
Mhm.
do it in your teen years, you'll do it early in your career, you'll do it later. Like there's a part of you that will forsake authenticity for the attachment.
Yes, and integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yes, you really hit the right word, because that's part of what I did. Is I sacrificed some of my authenticity, so that I could feel like I was getting validated, and also I felt like these guys know more than I do. They seem like they know more than I do, and there are things I don't know, and I'm suffering socially because of things I don't seem to know. I didn't have any older siblings.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like, well, these guys, he's 10 months older than me. He's got it all figured out. And this was someone who was very charismatic, and he came across as confident. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, that was really compelling for me because of that vacuum that we're talking about.
Yeah. So let's flip to the other side of the relationship, which is the mentor, you know.
Mhm.
Um, I've definitely felt this because I began mentoring younger teenagers and kids around age 20 or 21, and now 8 years later, I know some of those relationships I still have, and I know what it did for me from those relationships, from having those relationships pour into my life, being able to guide and connect with a younger man. What do you think are some benefits as you go through adulthood to offer that out to someone younger?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that uh, I, for the longest time, couldn't imagine that I had anything to offer anybody who was younger than I did. I had this idea, and I don't think I'm alone in this. I think I had this idea that I had to have everything. I had to feel like I had everything sorted out. I had to feel like I had
Yeah. Oh
everything
yeah. Oh yeah.
on track,
Mm-hmm.
everything. Because if I didn't, then why would anybody listen to me?
Mm-hmm.
And as I got into my early 50s, younger men started gravitating toward me. And I started to realize that, like, well, I think I know some things that they don't. And I think that I'm moving into a phase in my life where, in order for me to continue to develop as an individual and as a man, I need to consider the possibility that there's a reason why these younger men are looking to me the way that they are. And
Mm-hmm.
then I reflected back on like what it was like for me when I was their age.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of put myself in that place. And I thought, oh, well, yeah, of course. They see somebody who has more life experience. And they think, well, maybe he has something that he can tell me.
Mhm.
And so for me, part of what it did when I started to move in that direction and open up to that is it opened up a whole other level of development for me personally,
Mhm.
in terms of understanding how I got to be the way I was, and reflecting back on how I was at that age, and how did I approach that problem, and
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
was my attitude like toward men who are older, and did I feel comfortable approaching them, and what what would have been different if there had been somebody around who was available and I felt comfortable approaching him.
There's definitely something that like you go through in these mentorship and when you're in the role as the mentor where like I've felt this time and time again where like if you try to bring the person who you're mentoring up to your level, the resonance isn't as strong as whenever you can come down, not in the way of going lower, but come
Mhm.
down to their into their reality. You step into their reality, and that's where like you really can connect. I've
Right.
felt, and it's like it's interesting because it's like, especially now, like working um as a high school basketball coach, like I see that it's whenever I go into their world, it's almost like I become 15 or 16 again, but
Mhm.
with the wisdom of my age. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. I'm always amazed when I work with clients at the number of younger men that they just want to hear me talk about a situation like the one that they're facing right now, and like, just hear what I did. How
Mm-hmm.
did I handle it? How
Mm-hmm.
was it affecting me? What was that experience like for me? And
Mm-hmm.
that kind of goes back to the old sitting around the fire, telling
Yeah.
stories, where the older members of the tribe are telling their stories and so forth. We just, we don't seem to get a lot of that. Uh,
Yeah. And
and so,
you said this before that, so much of it, so much of the things that men struggle with in these days is because they just simply have nobody to talk to, no one to
oh,
share that community with. And, um, society is, well, and of course there's truth within them, but society tells a narrative that, by the time you're 21 or 22, definitely by 25 as a man, you're supposed to be 100% have the answers, independent, know exactly where you want to go, what decisions to make, be ready to lead your career or a business and or a family all at once. And that's supposed to make you happy, and there's supposed to be no doubts or questions about it and the way you want to proceed.
yeah. And so many men that come to me, single men, tell me I don't have, and married men also often tell me I don't have anybody to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's incredibly isolating. And I think that the events of the last year have made that worse in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ways,
Mm-hmm.
because men have different. Every man has his own set of needs in terms of socialization, and what is it that makes him feel like he's not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And for some of us need to have deep conversations about things, or conversations other people would consider to be deep. Uh, and for a lot of men, it's just like they just need to get out and play golf. They just need to get out and go bowling. They need to just do something, go hunting, just spend time with other men. Now, that doesn't mean that all their needs are getting met by far. That's one of the best things I always liked about men's groups. The men's groups I was in, is just that, to create this opportunity for a group of men to come together once a week, and it's just an open space. You just tell is whatever you want to say about what's going on in your life. It was so liberating, and it's so nurturing for me and the other men that were in those groups. And I dearly wish that there were more of those opportunities available.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's a difficult thing. It's kind of a catch-22, because a lot of the time men want to find a group and there isn't one active in their area. But on the other side, facilitators start to try to start them, and they can't get enough men to sort of form, you know, a quorum to get one going and keep it going. Because there's still a lot of, I think there's still a lot of reluctance. Men, we don't trust each other in a lot of ways. In some ways we do. But in terms of being revealing about what's actually going on inside us, I think that's a tough sell still for a lot of men.
I mean, the fact that men don't trust each other, that's loaded right there, you know.
Well, why do you think? Do you agree with that? And why do you think it might be the case if you do?
Well, it's cyclical. I think within you, I think if you are reaching out for authentic help or connection or anything, and there's a lack of trust, it's because either you've experienced being betrayed before, or you've been the betrayer. So that's in, you know, you've been the one doing the betraying. So it's within you at some point. And you know, I know that the patterns of males competing against each other um is deep, is
Yeah.
deep. And I mean, you know, especially, you know, you're taught that, you know, you must be a competitive male to survive and
Hmm.
to thrive.
And we experience that
Mhm.
over and over through our lives. I mean, there's definitely an aspect of that that's part of life. It's part of society. It's we compete for women. Uh, we compete for promotions. Uh, all sorts of things like that. And I think that's actually okay. But what I feel like is missing is where's the balance with that? Where like we're not
What is
just
the balance?
competitors, we're also brothers. We're also living the same lives in some ways.
Yeah.
Like there's so much commonality there uh, that can be a real source of um, it can be a real source of support, and it can be a real source of comfort for men to realize. That was one of the big things for me when I was first in men's groups, like hearing other men talk about their concerns and
Mhm.
what their lives were really like. It's just like, wow, man, I didn't know anybody was feeling these things and having these thoughts aside from me. I thought it was just me.
So this saying comes from sports, you know, that re- don't fear your competitor, but respect them, because without your competitor, there is no competition.
Hmm.
And I think that that could be a way of looking at it that could help, you know, the men who are going to watch this, is to think that you're not saying don't compete. Like, we love to compete. It's part of our makeup. Like it is,
Right.
but respect your competitor, respect your fellow man, because if he weren't beside you or across from you, there would be no way to live out that expression. You need each other.
Right.
You need each other, you know, just as much as you want to beat each other.
Right. And also when you look at that, your competitor realize that that's me. Like that's a reflection
Mhm.
of me because we have so much in common that we can, if we have the opportunity to talk openly, we're going to find out that we have a lot more in common that we didn't realize.
Yeah.
Important things about our
Yeah.
concerns and our priorities and our worries and our feelings of insecurity and our aspirations, all
Yeah.
that stuff. There's a lot of commonality there. And again, to take it back to the mentor thing, the older men showing up for younger men, that's one of the things that you can give a younger man or a boy as in a mentoring role, is to basically validate his concerns, validate the fact that he has these insecurities that are not weird, they're not unique. It's like, yes, this is part of the process. You can provide a lot of reassurance that yes, you're this is normal. This is within the constraints. This is within the scope of the experience that you're going to have when you take this on or at this age. These kind of challenges are things that are to be expected. They're part of the process. They're part of life. again, I didn't have any framing for that kind of stuff because everybody that I looked to as a model was basically in my peer group
Yeah.
in terms of personal experience. Now, I did identify, a mentor doesn't have to be physically present in your life. Um,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh,
you know,
man, that's been great for me. Yeah.
yeah, and you don't even have to have
hmm
personal interaction with him. I mean, there are people in my generation. Robert Bly was a mentor for a lot of men in my generation. Jordan Peterson is a mentor for a lot of men in your
hmm
generation.
hmm
And there are others. There are lots of others. And it doesn't even have to be somebody that's focused in on this arena. It can be an athlete. And I'm sure you had people think of them as like
Yeah.
models or idols, but they're mentors for you because you look at their behavior and you look at their
Mhm.
lives and you look how they conduct themselves.
And you don't have to meet them.
No,
And
no,
I thought about this difference that you said, that you said you looked around and it was your peers. That doesn't, maybe you're surrounded by great peers, but there's something about the a more mature mentor that's valuable because the separation in age and the separation in um, point, where that mentor is at in their life, that puts enough natural distance between you and seeing them as a competitor, because you're in a whole different paradigm, even if you're looking around, whether you're in the middle of your career or whether you're on a team, these guys, you can learn from them, but at the end of the day, you're directly in the same arena of competition as them versus
right.
you go to someone who's in the next arena or two or three graduated levels above, so to say. And like, it's like there's an opportunity for like a natural openness, that could come up, that could arise.
I think that's a great point that you just made about the sort of neutralizing the competitive part of it.
Yeah.
Uh, because I mean, kind of what I heard and what I'm thinking is if you're, if you're your age and you're looking at somebody who's my age, it's like, well, we're not in competition with each other for anything. Um, but you can look at it in terms, as I have at different points in my life, of like, well, I like what he's doing, or I like the way he's going about it. Uh, and we're not competing at all because we're basically operating in different arenas. But then you can just kind of look at it as a modeling kind of situation. And a lot of my peers were great people, but our life experience was almost identical because we're all basically the same age. So we're all kind of getting out of college at the same time. We're all kind of having first relationships at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like there's no advantage that we could offer one another in terms of life experience or wisdom
Yeah.
or maturity or whatever anybody wants to call it.
hmm
So we helped each other a lot. I had I had a couple of friends that like one of them went out and bought a suit for his first job interview, bought a cheap suit. The next time somebody had a job interview, he handed it over to him, and that finally got to me. We all wore the same suit. That's the level of like assistance that we could offer each other, and it was good. It was excellent. That was the best we could do. But we couldn't, at 22, none of us could offer each other the point of view or the context of someone who's 50 years old. You can't do it.
What's up? This is Chris Wilson. Thank you so much for checking out the content, and I hope you found value within it. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share, as it helps the channel grow and helps me continue my work of seeking deeper truths and sharing it with the world.